Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Push with Nick and KP. We are here for the WrestleMania Night 2 recap. As we kind of mentioned in the first one, um, I was here live for this one, and KP watching from home. So if there are any differences here, we will kind of allude to those here. But night one, for me personally, very much felt like it felt like a proper WrestleMania, and night one had its issues. And it was definitely a night of two different feels to it. But night two kind of picked up right where night one left off. So to me, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started in the first match. And that was yet another triple threat match. And for the third match in a row, continuing over from night one, this was one of my most highly anticipated matches. And I've said it before, but any other Mania, I think this main event's. The fact that it didn't main event, I think, is just a testament to the matches and the builds that we were provided for this WrestleMania. But here we are, three of the absolute best women in WWE, and they delivered. They tore down the house, an incredible match. All three women brought one of their best appearances and best matches of their career here in WWE. And anytime Bianca brings out the hair whip, you're in a moment, and which I think she should do more, by the way. The moment is real when that happens. The crowd was super hot for this one. I'd argue that this arguably was bigger than anything that happened the first night in terms of crowd reactions. I think the first night lacked a bit, and I think the crowd kind of felt that. And I think for the most part, at least in my section, most of the people that were there night one were there night two. And so I think for the most part, I don't have a percentage, but the crowds that were there on night one were also there on night two. And I think we kind of felt like we were ready to feel a mania. And for whatever reason, night one just didn't have that feel for part of the night. And so everyone was ready to go from the start. And I feel like this match provided an opportunity to do that. And we rode that momentum that we had from the ending of night one. And yeah, this is an incredible contest. Io getting the win here. And obviously, I feel like we kind of mentioned that this was the exact right call because of how she wasn't respecting this build by Bianca and Rhea. I feel like Io winning this match forces their hand. Now you have to respect Io. And this was the second Mania in a row where Io is involved in Mania and is, in my opinion, brings what I would call the best match of Mania. So second year in a row where she's done that. So if you didn't have your attention before this, and I think a lot of the general audience, maybe she wasn't a super well-known star. I think after these last two Manias, she is. So even the casual fans, who Io Sky is now. And I think that's safe to say that she's earned the respect of all of us. So yeah, incredible match, and what a way to kick off the night. And what, again, I will dub as the match of the weekend. KP, were you as hard on this one as I am? What were your overall takeaways here?
It was basically how you described it. It was one of the matches of the weekend. What a way to kickstart night two! Three absolutely top women in the wrestling world, whether WWE or not. They just absolutely brought it. They shone. They absolutely shone here on the grander stage. So it was great to see all three women really sort of like have their moments here throughout the entirety of the matchup. Io Sky, like you said, maybe was a little bit sort of like booked to be undervalued and underestimated maybe going into this one, but she showed why she is the women's world champion. There's a reason for it. It wasn't a fluke, and she just is one of the best women going at the moment. And I think when you're in the ring with both Bianca Belair and Rhea Ripley as your opponents, you do have to sort of like step up your game. But I don't think Io Sky really has that that sort of challenge. She just sort of like stays at the same game that she always is at. She's always one of the top performing women, like most consistent across the board. So it was probably easy for her to do so, which is quite crazy. But the standard was high. It was great from the get go. Loved the intensity that all three women really brought here. Bianca whipping out the hair. We don't see that very often anymore, so it's quite nice when she does that. a little bit more of a heelish side of her. I think we've really had that in this build, so it'll be interesting to see if she sort of like capitalizes on that going forward. And the boos from the crowd and stuff towards Bianca is quite telling. So hopefully they do sort of like keep that going, because I want to see that take that next step. But yeah, Rhea Ripley getting a huge reaction response. Same with Io Sky. It was great to see all three women sort of like get the crowd responses in the way they all would have wanted to. Well, I guess you could say maybe Bianca wouldn't want to get booed, but that's the situation now. It is what it is, as she said. So it's nice to hear that they're all sort of like getting individual responses, which is good. But yeah, what a contest, what a performance, great result for Io Sky. Really happy that she came out with this one on top. That was my ideal result from this one. So yeah, no complaints. Great win, great match. 9.5 out of 10. That's what I gave it. So very, very close to perfect. But what about you, Nick? What did you give as your rating for this one?
And I sit here and hand out my second perfect rating off of night one, the main event. Gave that one a 10 as well. I give this one a 10 as well. Yes, they were both triple threat matches, but the differences in stories that we were told, um, obviously this one being a much more in-ring masterpiece. At least that's what I would say compared to the first triple threat we saw from the main event. But yeah, it was they passed the torch, and these women just ran away with it. So yeah, an interesting note on the Bianca heel reaction. This Mania crowd, and I think it's similar to most in that they certainly are a snarky crowd, I guess I would call it, in that we want to boo the faces and cheer the heels sometimes. And we see another instance of that later on tonight. But yeah, I think if the crowd can continue to do that, they'll kind of force WWE's hand, and what we all want to see, I think we can agree on, and that's Bianca turning heel. So with that, we'll move on to the next match, and that's Damian Priest and Drew McIntyre. Yeah, WWE did an incredible job of making this match. I think a lot of us, I know you and me in particular, KP, couldn't care less about. Felt like Drew was above this match. No offense to Damian Priest, but Drew has been one of the hottest stars for quite some time. He kills everything he's given, and this was obviously no exception. So that being said, the build for this match, it was great, but the match was even better, which I think is just a testament to. I'm sorry, I think Drew is the reason why this all worked. We talked about this in our predictions video, but felt like this could be a sneaky match, of the weekend, kind of a surprise, really, really good match. And I think it's safe to say, at least in my opinion, it lived up to our predictions. This is a brutal match, and I think both men walk away looking good here, but I think especially Drew, from the second Mania Live tweet, which is incredible. If he does that every year, I have no issues with it, and I will eat it up each time. To pushing Drew off the ropes, through the tables, to the Claymore against the steel chair. I think this match delivered everything it should have, and I don't think WWE can continue to kind of push Drew aside. He needs a title on him. Let's not waste any more of this man's career. This match, is the 1,000th time he's proved that he can get absolutely anything over, and he deserves the hardware to prove it. So, KP, what were your thoughts on this one? Did this one live up to the expectations we kind of put forth in our predictions video?
Yeah, I would say it did. We didn't have the biggest interest going in, but I don't think that really stopped these men from, going all out and leaving everything in there. So yeah, it was a very fun match. Very brutal, like you said. Some nice spots. From start to finish. I loved the the tweets that Drew McIntyre is doing in the WrestleMania matches. Obviously, this one being a selfie was just the next little step. As to what he's doing. But no, it's a comical moment, but it was great nonetheless. Yeah, that didn't take away from anything that really followed from that though, because it was intense, it was brutal throughout, and yeah, tables getting put through. The Claymore at the end was great. Against Steel Chair, like you've mentioned. Weapons used throughout the entirety. Yeah, it was just it was what you'd want from a street fight. So both men brought it. Very happy that Drew McIntyre got the victory. I think it was well deserved. Hopefully, sort of like keep this sort of like going forward with the momentum, and yeah, we'll see how this plays out eventually. But Drew McIntyre with a win, huge for him, and just keep it going. 8.5 out of 10, fun match, but yeah, want to see him in some bigger stories now, and getting some bigger results too.
I've seen the argument online too that Drew is just constantly proving that he doesn't need a title. And I think that's a fair point. But at a certain point, give the man his flowers, That's kind of my main takeaway here. And I gave this one an 8 out of 10. Yeah, a great way to continue the momentum that the women kicked off Mania with. And speaking of momentum, we move on to the next match here for the Fatal 4-Way for the Intercontinental Championship. I mentioned earlier heels getting face reactions and vice versa, and this brought a great moment here. And Dominik Mysterio winning the IC title. No man looked weak here, but I would argue that Bron comes away here looking the best. It's no secret that I love Bron, so I'm not gonna fanboy over him here too much. And please call me out if I'm outside of my mind here. But I think Bron is just that guy. And this match has, and time again, he proves that he's ready to move on to bigger and better things. And and all that being said, Dirty Dom here got the Eddie Guerrero treatment. Safe to say this was the largest pop of the night. There's only one other moment I think that comes even close to it. And when he won that title, and also the crowd is chanting Dirty Dom in the way they chant Cody Rhodes for a good portion of this match. I'm not sure how much of it was heard on TV, but for most of the match, they are chanting Dirty Dom. And you could just tell he was in his feels and was loving every minute of it. But yeah, they planted the seed for the breakup once again. Feel like we talked about that for years. But I'm ready for it. I think this match did what it needed to in terms of making sure that is the path we're headed down. And I'm ready for Finn to get back to a single star. So before it's too late, let's continue on. Let's make that story happen. And crazy to think that Penta very much becomes kind of an afterthought here. Not downplaying what he contributed here, but just in the grand scheme of things, he kind of felt like the afterthought here for this match. But regardless, he still had a great showing. I think it's a great match for him to have his Mania debut. But yeah, what were your thoughts on this one, KP? Did the crowd reactions, were they apparent as well over TV for Dirty Dom? And what were your thoughts on him winning his first title here in WWE? Singles title, excuse me.
Yeah, the crowd was loud. I heard that from watching on TV. There's the reaction that Dominik Mysterio was getting throughout the entirety. It was just making me smile. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it was nice to see sort of like him get a completely different response, and I wanted Dom to win. So with the crowd getting behind him as well, seeing how how much love he was getting, it was a cool moment. It was good, but yeah, I think it definitely sort of came across the way it probably felt like in the arena, I would say. So yeah, it worked out well in that respect. But what a match it was, fatal 4-Way between all four guys. It's crazy that you think that, yeah, maybe Penta perhaps was the one that got most lost in the shuffle, but I don't really think I'd say like that was the absolute case. But I think if you're gonna sort of like pick out one in particular person that maybe didn't quite shine as brightly as the rest of them, I guess, yeah, you probably could say Penta in that respect. But everyone had their moments. Everyone was involved, and yeah, it was just sort of like a tale between Dom turning on Balor and whatnot. Trying to basically go over him to get the victory, and in the end would pin Balor too. By the way, Bron Breakker, he looked as badass as ever. Penta had his moments for sure as well, but yeah, Dom winning, you don't get a bigger moment than that throughout this matchup, and the reception that he had afterwards was very telling. It was great to see for him personally. And yeah, he was clearly enjoying it. He went up the ramp and then he ran back down to celebrate once again, holding the title up above his head, on the turnbuckles. Yeah, obviously it was huge for him. And soak it in, enjoy the moment. And yeah, I don't blame him for making every single second of it after the bell rang. But yeah, great match, loved it. liked the storytelling involved as well, across the rest of the technical and just brutal moments with Bron Breakker especially. But yeah, very very fun. 8.5 out of 10 for me personally, and had a great time watching it. And congrats to Dirty Dom. What a win for him.
We see him booed every week, and so it was such a great feeling to see him being cheered, um, by out universally, essentially. And so yeah, what a great moment, and one of my favorite moments of the weekend. But yeah, in terms of rating, another 0.5 above you. I think I've done that a few times, or this one already, but I gave this one a 9 out of 10. Um, it just was such a special moment, and I think one of the moments I will walk away remembering the most here, in terms of how loud the crowd was for Dom. So, speaking of loud reactions, let's move on to the next match, and what I think is the only other moment that kind of rivals that pop that Dom got, and that's Randy Orton versus Joe Hendry. And you kind of mentioned it the night before, and I think the El Grande Americano and Ray Phoenix match, it kind of provided a break, and what felt like every other match was very much, you know, trying to build up to this epic match. And this match was just something in the card that provided a break from that. And I think you have to have those. You have to have these at each Mania, and this match provided that. So I'm not sure who you were expecting. Curious to hear your thoughts on that. I can't recall if we talked about it in the pre-show match, but I think Aleister Black was the person that I'd heard most and made the most sense to get an epic Mania return and kind of a moment here. But then obviously you run into the issue of who do you have win. So yeah, with Joe Hendry here getting just monumental pop here and a huge ovation, even though it was a short match, I really enjoyed this one for what it was. Both guys kind of getting their time to kind of take this comedic match and having fun with it. And I think both of them did. And the crowd obviously ate it up as well. We all know what Joe Hendry is able to do in terms of entertaining, and Randy is certainly no slouch in that department either. He loves to have moments of fun when he's given the opportunity. So I've heard people complaining that they think Randy buried Joe here, but honestly, I feel like this is the TNA champion got to be on Mania. So I think that in itself is a rub for him and TNA in itself. Obviously, they had that partnership, but I think this was just a great Mania moment. I don't think going, leaving Mania tonight, I don't think anyone's thinking, Joe Hendry's done this wrestler. I just don't see that happening. And I think as soon as he's able, Joe Hendry will be with WWE. And I think, I don't think this will hinder his career whatsoever. So a great first Mania moment for him as well. And, Randy just out there having the time of his life. It was a great moment for me personally. KP, how'd you see this one?
Yeah, this was great. This was just so funny. I think with Joe Hendry appearing, answering the call, I didn't expect Hendry whatsoever. I think I was more on the side of maybe Rusev was going to answer this call. In which case I was happy for Randy to go over Rusev in that respect, so it didn't really bother me personally. But yeah, Joe Hendry was a much better option. I'm glad they managed to go down that route. Having the TNA champion on WrestleMania is kind of wild, but yeah, it was a very very iconic moment. I think the reaction was incredible. Hearing the pop from watching at home, it was huge. It was absolutely massive. So testament to the kind of attention that Joe Hendry brings whenever he's around. So yeah, it was a nice surprise, nice shock, and the match itself was just fine, wasn't it? It wasn't anything special, but it was a good moment between two men who deserved to be on that stage. I think Randy Orton with his 20th WrestleMania match. He'll probably remember this one and look back on it quite fondly. I would have thought for being not so serious, but a nice moment, a fun moment, and I think he'll probably relish that. To be fair, in a few years' time, Joe Hendry though, I mean, it doesn't get much bigger than being a TNA superstar and getting to appear on WrestleMania against Randy Orton. That's huge, that's massive. And for anybody saying that, Randy sort of buried Joe Hendry here, it wasn't really about that. Like, I wouldn't say that he got buried anyway, because he had it wasn't exactly one sided. It was back and forth, and Joe Hendry just let his guard down. He got caught up in the in the moment, and just allowed himself just to be RKO'd when he wasn't really sort of thinking about Randy at all. He was just sort of like enjoying the matchup and having a fun time. But yeah, I mean, huge for him. What a moment. I think, yeah, the pop is one that'll be looked back for a long time, just how loud it was. But yeah, it was fun. It didn't need to be great. It was fun. It was good, and it was enjoyable, and that's the main thing. It was entertaining, and I think that was a nice little halfway point here of this WrestleMania night too. I gave it a 7 out of 10 just because I think that's fair, and yeah, it wasn't a clinical masterpiece, but it was enjoyable, and yeah, I can look back on this one, I can smile and just appreciate it for what it was, and that was an entertaining moment.
Yeah, like we said, not every match needs to be a 5-star classic and a mania worthy match. Sometimes we just have to break that up and have a mania moment. And you kind of alluded to it too. Like, Joe Hendry just let his guard down. This is his first mania. This is Randy Orton's 20th. So yeah, no doubt in my mind that he'll recover, and once he comes back or once he becomes an official WWE guy, he'll have his moment. He'll have his moment. So yeah, no big issues for me there. So with that, we'll move on. Or wait, did I give him rating there? I can't recall if I did, but just in case I didn't, I'd give this one a 7.5 out of 10. And yeah, with that, we'll move on to the next match. And for me, similar to night one, and having your a tale of two tales here in terms of part of the event that felt like everything was going well, and then part of it that didn't. It was kind of flipped from the first night. The first night started off rough, and then the ending was one of the best. This one kind of flips that. The start was incredible, and up until this match, everything was going perfectly, and no issues on my end. And this is kind of where we kind of first see the downfall of night one, in my opinion. Um, AJ Styles and Logan Paul. So despite the very short build, I think with these two guys in the ring, I had high hopes for them. I believe you did as well, and I think most did as well. And the reasons are obviously pretty obvious, and that is it has AJ Styles in it, one of the best in the world, and Logan Paul, who despite his short history in WWE, always seems to show up. Unfortunately, this one for me failed to capture that magic and live up to those expectations I had set, even albeit a bit lofty. Um, I don't know why, but something didn't work here. Uh, the highlight of the match for me was just the pop that Cross got as he was outside the ring. AJ not accepting his proposal to go, to win like that. I hopefully that's what the grand takeaway here is. It was for me especially, and that Cross needs to be pushed. And it's crazy to think that out of this match, that's my takeaway, and that's the highlight of the match for me. But if I've not said it before, I'll say it again. Cross needs this push, and AJ Styles, if that's the route they're going, I don't care as long as it gets crossover. Um, yeah, so that's my main takeaway. Unfortunately, I don't know why this didn't work. I have a theory that I think Logan Paul is no longer that shiny toy. I think that's basically what it boils down to. I have no doubt that he can come back and his next match will be great, but I think in terms of what he does in the ring, I think the part-time aspect also comes into play. I think because he's not a veteran of the business, seemingly, and I think I've read since then that he's gone again after this. I think that's really starting to come into play, and people are like, "I don't care. I don't want to be invested in you anymore because every time you come here for a match, you leave anyway. So what's the point?" I think that's the biggest issue with this match because I think AJ Styles, although his WrestleMania track record isn't what you would assume based on his overall career, unfortunately, this was another dud in his lineup. So, KP, what were your thoughts on this one and your overall takeaways?
Yeah, this is a weird one. I think going into this matchup, I had quite high hopes for it to be like to be one of maybe the sleeper matches of the weekend. And I think when you look at how night one went, and you had that sort of like slow start, to eventually getting a lot better. I think this was maybe the first initial signs of maybe night 2 going from a really great start, like you said, down to maybe dropping down a couple of levels. And it's unfortunate because, these two men are both very, very good in the ring, and there's absolutely no question that they're unbelievably talented in their own rights. The match itself actually wasn't bad. It was pretty good. I gave it a pretty high rating, but I just think that based on the finish and the build, I think it's not all about just the match itself. I think that when you have Styles suffer from being second best in the build, consistently going into this one, and then to lose this matchup, I just think it's just sort of, I don't know, it almost feels like they're burying Styles with Logan, which just is a very weird sentence in itself. But that's the vibe that I got. That's the immediate reactions I had, and I haven't had time to think about it now. I haven't changed my stance. It just seems like, yeah, Logan went over and over and over, and that was it. Like, there was no sort of comeback in no other bit from this, and I found that to be very strange. And I personally don't agree with how the booking went. I think if you're gonna have Styles lose, then at least let him have a bit of a moment, in the build up to it, rather than having Logan go over and over him each time. So yeah, strange for sure. I was very taken aback from just the general booking for this one in general. But the match was fun. It was good. It was maybe a step down from what I thought it could have been, but there wasn't anything bad about it per se. The interference from Cross at the end, yeah, sure, obviously being a bit confusing with the brass knuckles and not having used them and whatnot. Yeah, that made for the moment where Logan would get the victory here. But I think it's sort of expected with Logan Paul's matches. You're never going to have sort of like a clean one-on-one. It's always going to be some sort of interference with one of his little goons on the outside, trying to get involved, and ultimately they're stopped, and then something happens, and then yeah, we go from there. But it's I think that's my main criticism. It's very copy and paste with maybe a slight little change every now and then. And this time, obviously, being the big difference is Karrion Kross. So, I mean, Kross against Styles. The whole point is Cross wants to get a more vicious side out of AJ Styles. We literally had that a year ago. I don't get why they're going down this route again. Doesn't really make a lot of sense to me in that respect, but maybe there's more to it than meets the eye right now. Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see. But I gave the match an 8 out of 10. I did like the match. I thought it was good, but I just think there's so many clouds over this one that take away from the match itself that maybe left a bit of a sour taste in my mouth. So I think yeah, 8 out of 10 for the match quality, but there's just a whole lot of question marks with everything else going on here.
Yeah, I really don't have anything. I think a lot of the points you make are good ones and valid. And for AJ Styles to kind of give Logan the rub like that, basically from the build up to the actual match. So Logan Paul having beaten AJ Styles on the grandest stage of them all, and then if the rumors are true, he's gone after this. Just I think that just adds to the match in an overall aspect, and that why, I guess, is the main question I have leaving it. But yeah, I gave this one a 7 out of 10. Again, yeah, the match itself was fine. Good, I would say good even, but I think my expectations may have been a little too high, and just felt like it didn't deliver in a way it should have. So yeah, with that, we move on to the next match, and unfortunately, the trend of going downhill continues here for me. And I mentioned earlier, like the tale of two halves for this Mania night too. This was a match again that it didn't have a Mania feel to me. Outside of the return of Becky, which obviously got a nice pop, nothing felt special here to me. Even the shocking decision to have Liv and Raquel lose the belt, which I thought was a terrible one, by the way. I think for me personally, there are a few reasons, and this is going to come off as a rant, but it is what it is. We use these videos to share our opinions, so we're going to do just that. I felt like Liv and Raquel had been building up some good momentum for these titles. And this is definitely the weakest reason of the ones I have, but it felt like this giving the Becky her Mania pop here felt like that was just a bad way to go about it. So I think that's the weakest reason of all, but obviously another reason being Becky was to replace Bayley. Obviously we'll find out to see if that's thing going forward, and maybe we'll make sense of it. But Bailey and Lyra were already a makeshift tag team in themselves, and so if you listen to our show for any amount of time, we don't like the makeshifts beating the established teams, and unfortunately, that's what happened here. And KP and I obviously both prefer Bailey over Becky. I think in the grand scheme of things, and so no shade to Becky, but I think for her to come in here and kind of make this all about her, I think that's my biggest issue. It felt like even Becky getting the win over Liv, and yes, I know that was her revenge or whatever on Liv. But Lyra not even getting the pinfall here just felt like it was just all about Becky. Um, and so and Lyra being that Intercontinental title, not getting the rub and not even defending her title and being in this picture in the first place. Yeah, I think that about covers it. But yeah, I don't know. It just felt like this was just all about Becky. That just didn't set right with me. And people dislike Charlotte for the exact same reasons. But she came back and immediately won a title, and Bailey is sidelined because of it. Um, you know, and Becky has done this before. Yeah, I haven't forgot. Bianca, she comes back and takes her title. Is it done? It just doesn't set right with me. And so in the end, this didn't feel like a Mania worthy match. I felt like this could have easily taken place on a weekly show. So outside of the Becky return, it just didn't feel like it just brought anything special. So um, yeah, I don't know. They hadn't been together for more than 24 hours, and they beat arguably one of the best things going, especially in this division, which has struggled. So yeah, I'll end it there. KP, what were your thoughts on this one? Did you feel like maybe I'm overreacting here a bit, or did you kind of receive this one similarly?
No, I wouldn't say you're overreacting at all. I think you're singing off the same hymn sheet as I am. Really, I think I don't have too much to add that you haven't already said. I do feel very sorry for Bailey, and I've got a lot of questions as to why this has gone down the route it went down. Is it literally just because of bringing Becky back, and this is their grandest way of doing it, their best way of doing it? I suppose probably. I feel like a lot of the conversation directed here is at the questionable booking around Bailey and being replaced by Becky and having Liv and Raquel drop the titles. And I guess, maybe a bit more about that when Raw comes around and we'll see what happens from there. But yeah, just talk about this match itself. I think, yeah, that gradual decline off of the really good start for the night does continue, like you mentioned, and it was a bit of a strange one. I think Becky coming back was a great moment. Fair play. It is a huge pop, and outrightly she deserves that big stage. But at the expense of Bailey for no apparent reason going into this one, she is injured. Is she injured though? We'll see. It's just very strange, and I don't really agree with that too much. I feel like it's a bit of a disrespectful thing towards her. And the hard work she's put in the last year, I think she's had a great year. On and off bits here and there, sure, but I think generally more good than bad for Bailey in the last year. So, yeah, I don't know, bit of a strange one, but the match itself was also strange. I didn't see Liv and Raquel dropping the titles whatsoever. I was thinking, oh, okay, now that Becky's here, maybe we could have a heel turn from her, and maybe we could have Becky versus Lyra for the IC title, post this show, and that would have been cool. But yeah, the Lyra two belts is quite interesting. Very early in her career to have as much attention as she's got. She's very good. I've got no question marks on her ability, but yeah, it does seem to be a very early still though for her. But yeah, just a very confusing segment generally. The match was fine. It wasn't anything like special, but it was okay. Um, yeah, I don't know. Just it felt like I was wanting a bit more from this, and maybe I just didn't agree with it generally speaking, and that probably is why I've got like a bit of a sour tone on it. But I gave it a 7.5 out of 10, regardless of all of that. It was a big moment. There's a big return. The match itself was okay. Yeah, I think there's a lot of factors going into it that sort of like helps it maybe be bumped up a little bit, but just so different in my mind compared to how they've gone about this. I think that's the main difference there.
I'm glad I'm not, the only one. And it just felt like in terms of the live crowd, no one cared. No one cared after the Becky pop. That was that. Even when they won the titles and we're celebrating, crowd was like, okay. I think, I kind of mentioned that the heels were kind of more cheered, and you could tell the crowd did not like this decision either. So I'm glad I'm not alone there. And unfortunately, this for me was the worst match of the night. And you know, I just don't like shoving Becky back in there. We hate Charlotte for the same reasons. Her booking, politicking or whatever you want to call it. You can't hate that and then like this. So yeah, with that, we move on to the main event of night two, and unfortunately for me, the moment that we were going for here is just kind of continues the streak of night two, kind of just going downhill. Obviously, I think the grand takeaway here is nice, and that is that John Cena breaking the record, winning a 17th, was great. It was a great moment. I'm glad I was there for it. It's one of the reasons why I decided to end up, making the trip, because I felt like I needed to see him on his farewell tour. In all the years I've watched wrestling, I'd never been able to see him live. So it just never worked out. I don't know how that happened, but it is what it is. And so I'm glad I was here for this moment. I'm glad I was able to see him win his 17th. But there were issues for this match for me. And I know it feels like this has turned quite negative, but it's just, I'm not gonna lie and make it seem like I enjoyed things I didn't. So yeah, to me, this was the worst Mania event I've seen in a while. Um, and WWE should have known that. They should have known this wasn't going to be well received for several reasons, and they should have swapped out the first Mania night main event with this one. If they knew, maybe they didn't. We'll find out over the next couple weeks, I'm sure, if they knew that this was the final booking decision. The match itself was fine, nothing remarkable, and I, sorry to say it, John Cena, I don't think has a ton of those matches for me that are 5-star classics, so to speak, and this was no exception. And I'm sure I'm being too harsh on Cena, but for me, this is more so about the Travis Scott and the inclusion of him. And the title he walks in carrying for reasons that I'd love to hear. And that just didn't sit right with me. And so I think the elephant in the room here is, even, everyone's expecting The Rock. And at this moment during the match, I'm still expecting him, because and when Cody takes down Travis Scott, that's his doing, so to speak. We saw it last year, where I'm still thinking, and I think most of us are as well, is that, okay, well, now The Rock will come in and kind of set the record straight. But even if he had shown up, yes, it would have been more entertaining, but it still would have been lacking something. I don't know what, but and it doesn't compare to the main event of night one. So I would have personally preferred to just leave Travis Scott out of this. If The Rock's not going to be there, then that's fine. Just have John be the better wrestler on this night. I think that would have been the better decision. I think most people would have been like, okay, that's fine. He's put in his time. Let's make it happen. And then he wins the 17th, because, he's been around as long as he has, and he wins his 17th because he's a better wrestler. I have no issues with that. But yeah, unfortunately, that's the overall takeaway for me is very much soured because of the Travis Scott inclusion. And even with Cena winning a 17, having Travis Scott in the ring with him with that title, it kind of ruined the moment for me. And so I walked away from the Mania in a very sour mood, due to the last three matches, and especially this one. And so yeah, unfortunately, that's just my takeaways. I wish I could be happier for John and the occasion, but it felt like WWE really squandered this one. KP, can you turn this one into a little bit more of a positive light for me?
No, not massively. Yes, with Cena having a absolutely historic and huge moment, sure, but the way it happened is just absolutely crazy to me. I don't get it. I just really don't understand it. Like, it's one of those moments where you get the result that you want, but the journey you take to get there just makes it feel so unbelievably underwhelming. I can't explain it. It's a weird feeling. Like, just watching the referee count to 3 at the end, it was like, oh, that's it. Well, yes, okay, great. And then it's like, wait, really? That was it? And that was my general vibe from this one. It was just underwhelming. It just didn't really hit the heights that I really wanted it to. You know, if you told me at the beginning of the night, Cena's winning tonight, and you know he's going to get number 17, I'd be like, oh my god, I can't wait. It's going to be insane. It's going to be incredible. But this was it was far from that. It was a fine match. It was okay, and I emphasize fine because it doesn't deserve anything bigger than that. The match before Travis Scott, it was good. I will gladly say that. I was enjoying it. It was well paced. It was back and forth. It was how you'd expect it to go. And then when Travis Scott came down and he took like 2 minutes out of a live WrestleMania main event to have his entrance with the title on his shoulder, that means absolute zilch. It's just basically a fan walking down and having a bit of a VIP access to the ring. And then getting hit by the crossroads from Cody, and then Cena just is able to turn things around from there and get the victory in the end. It was so weird. Like the Rock's exclusion from this and the build, you know, obviously post Elimination Chamber, it just felt very lacking. There was something missing, and it is him, because if you have him, the Rock, be involved in such a huge moment with John Cena turning heel, you expect him to be not an ever-present, but at least somewhat relevant factor in the build in general. And he hasn't been seen since then on WWE television. So for me, that's very interesting. Why was The Rock even involved in that particular moment leading up to Elimination Chamber, and you know, at the time as well? For then to him not be involved whatsoever in the slightest afterwards, I don't agree or get that. Like, is it the fact that The Rock just comes along every now and then, expects to be involved in a story, gets put in one, and then then when he doesn't turn up or isn't able to turn up afterwards, WWE have to just find a way to work around that, and essentially have put themselves into an awkward position where they have to sort of like scramble for pieces and put them all together in the best way they can. I don't know. It just seems like it's very last minute and it's rushed, and I felt like that was the case here. It was garbage. It was an absolutely horrific way to get John Cena number 17, and I am a massive Cena fan, have been for a number of years, and wanted this moment for a long, long time. For it to have been delivered like this is just an absolute travesty. It's horrific. So I feel like most of the attention, the questions are on Travis Scott and not how John Cena has become the greatest of all time. No one's even talking about Cody. Like, Cody doesn't even get the attention that I think he deserves going into this one, having a very good build with John Cena in terms of living up to him on the mic and, you know, bringing it and not looking second best when it comes to, you know, having those promos with Cena. And that's saying something. That's huge in that respect. But for no attention to be on him, for all of it to be on The Rock and Travis Scott and all that nonsense, and then John Cena winning being a second thought and being an okay thing to happen afterwards, I don't know. It's so strange to me, but yeah, I guess we'd sort of like go with what we've got. It's a great moment. It's historical, yes, but it just feels a little bit of a sour taste, and that's a damn shame. I think they've really squandered something that could have been truly incredible and, you know, sensational. But yeah, whether that's The Rock's fault or not being able to turn up to something that he should have been involved in, I don't know. But what a way to ruin a moment that could have been an all-timer. It really, really could have been. But I think the heel turn will probably be talked about more than this match, and whether that's something that, you know, you want to have happened or not, I don't know. Maybe it was, but I feel like that's the wrong thing to have done. But congrats to Cena. Number 17 is huge. It's iconic. It's massive. I just wish it would have gone down in a better way. I gave the matchup and all around the segment a 7.5 out of 10. I just feel like it was good, and then it went truly atrocious, and that's just how it went down for me personally. But yeah, just a sour taste, man. You know, I don't know. I feel bad because, you know, this is the main event of the weekend. This is meant to be the match of the weekend. You know, the biggest one, and it just didn't really hit those heights, unfortunately.
I'm glad it's not just me, and because obviously we agree on most things. But this is one thing we disagree on. I'm very much a Cody guy in this situation. I think Cody has had a tremendous run, and for this to be the last kind of the way he loses, even that aspect of it. Part of that's on John just because I don't like his style, but part of that is on Travis Scott making this about him, making Cena and Rhodes look like absolute buffoons sitting in there in the ring waiting for his 2-minute entrance or whatever, however long it was. Felt like 100 minutes, but maybe this is just a wrestling purist take and on our end. Maybe the general audience, the general crowd that Mania attracts like this. Who knows? But obviously, this was not targeted for us. And if WWE, maybe they didn't know that couldn't be here tonight. It feels like I feel like that's pretty unlikely. But had they known this before the weekend, I think they absolutely should have switched to his main event. And yeah, I won't say anything else because it just feels like I'm already ranting, and I feel like we've already done that. But you being a Cena fan, it feels like it's even more disappointing to you, in that this is how they did it. Um, but yeah, I gave this one a 6.5 out of 10, mostly because of John Cena got his 17th. You take out John Cena, and this is probably my least favorite match of the weekend. So yeah, it's a tough one, and it unfortunately is a sour taste. The last few matches for night two, kind of couple that with the first couple matches of night one. Certainly a weekend of ups and downs. Overall for night two, averages out to a 7.5, which is slightly better than night one, which is crazy how good the night started, to end up at a 7.5. Is truly crazy. And overall, the weekend averages out to a 7.5 as well, rounding up just a bit. Um, yeah, the Mania certainly had its moments. I think if you take out the first two matches for the night one and you take out the last three matches of night two, um, I think you put those two nights together and you have an incredible, one of the best nights of Mania of all time. But unfortunately, that's just not how it goes. And so each night had its issues, and it just is such a sour way to end, in my opinion. If you switch out, if night one is the night two main event, I walk away feeling way more optimistic. Unfortunately, that's just not the call WWE had for us. KP, overall on night two, overall thoughts on the weekend as a whole, and any other thoughts you wanna get out there on this one?
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. I don't have too much to add that's different to what you've already mentioned there, so I'll keep it brief. But I said, I gave night two an 8 out of 10. I think that it was better than night one, but agreed, it had its glaring issues, and especially that main event. I mean, what are we doing? But yeah, I guess Tale of Two Halves. It could have been so much better. I think that it's one of those weird situations. But the whole weekend felt like that. Like it was very much Tale of Two Halves from both nights. So yeah, mix things up, change things around, whatever you want to do with the card. Either way, if you put all the matches that were good onto one night, you do have an incredible night. But then you also have one night which is probably the worst night in history of wrestling. So yeah, bit of this, bit of that, I guess. In terms of the whole weekend as a whole, I probably give WrestleMania a 7.5 out of 10. Don't think it quite captured the consistency of the card that Stand and Deliver did for me personally. I think I enjoyed that one a lot more as a whole, but there were some big moments. I don't want to take away from the likes of Dominik, Mysterio, and I guess Jey Uso. Whether I like it or not, that's huge for him personally. It's a moment that there's a lot gone into that, and that's probably the nice thing I'll say about that entire story. So enjoy that. And Cena obviously winning number 17 is massive as well, but just a shame the way it went down. Yeah, we've already mentioned all of that, but there were some big moments. That's basically what I'm trying to say here, and I think they should be remembered for what they were as well.
Yeah, and I think in 10 years from now, when we have moments that we remember, I think Cena winning 17th will be all we remember, and everything else will be washed out, whether intentional or not. Yeah, I think that's safe to say. But yeah, I disagree. I like Mania more than I like Stand and Deliver. Granted, I was there for Mania and not Stand and Deliver, so that probably plays a part. Um, and due to what I felt like was a predictable outcome in a lot of those Stand and Deliver matches, I felt like Mania had higher highs, but they also had lower lows. So, you know, and from a consistent standpoint, I absolutely see your case for Stand and Deliver. But yeah, with that WrestleMania 41 is in the books, and I know we both have a ton more to say on a lot of these topics, and I'm sure we will probably put out another video or two at the very least, just discussing the overall takeaways and kind of you know, after we have some more time to digest everything, probably have a lot more to say and maybe look at things going forward based on what happened tonight. And I know this was a long one, but yeah, there are lots of things to talk about here at night two. And night one as well. So we appreciate you sticking with us. And yeah, with that, this has been The Push with Nick and KP. If you have any thoughts on anything that took place over the weekend, do let us know in the comments below. And until then, we'll see you next time. Take care.